It's a great pleasure to be here tonight. I'm very, very glad that so many of you decided to come and hear what I learned about running an engineering team from Navy SEALs. And not to spoil it too much for you, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just a little bit less of camouflage. So uh, I'm gonna take you on the journey. My name is Krzysztof. I'm an engineer manager. And yeah, let's see what we can learn from the best of the best. So once upon a time, there was an engineering team that had a dream of changing the world of sharing data. And it was quite a unique team because we were fully remote and we were working across about 8 countries. And we grew from 5 to about 9 engineers in a little over 8 months. And we were working at a startup. So probably a lot of you know that that means everyone does everything and everything changes all the time. And as you can imagine, being like fully remote, speaking different languages, having different culture, it made things difficult. It made it quite challenging to align people and make sure that they stay aligned. And it was leading very often to less clarity than I would love. But hey, like I thought to myself, how hard can it be? Because I was working for quite good companies in my life. I worked for Goldman, I worked for Amazon. Then I joined Bobsled, so the startup, as a principal engineer. And then I shifted to being a manager. So probably it's not as difficult as it sounds, but it turns out it's quite hard. So I was told it's always good to start with like some good stories about how things went really badly. So the first time, or the first story is a wartime story about a POC that we were running for a big customer that was totally on fire. So as you probably imagine, like it didn't went well. It went sideways. We were trying to get very important customer. That was a big one. It was a publicly traded company that was considering using our platform to share their data. It meant like we're going to send like petabytes of data through our systems. And we were very excited to give it a shot. The problem is they went for the scale that we did not expect and we did not agree for. And the usage patterns that they were trying were the different ones that we were supporting at the time. But hey, like it's a big customer, so it's all hands on deck. We're gonna push through and we're gonna fix it. And as usual, like this happened during a public holiday because that's the best time when things can go wrong. So people were pulled from vacation. Like we were, okay, we've got this, we can fix it. The problem is everyone was stressed all the time because the moment we fixed one thing, 2 different things like were broken the very minute. And it was like constant chaos. People were trying to like frantically patch everything up and make sure that the system works and that the customer is happy and we get the contract. And yeah, like it lasted for about a month. We actually like ended in a quite good place. We fixed a lot of stuff. We were able to support their patterns, their data, their everything. At the end of it, like they were, you know what, like we actually just wanted to try it out because we don't have a budget for it this year. So that was like heartbreaking. And I thought to myself, there's a lesson there. As in, it didn't work as we expected. Like we didn't get the contract in the end, but maybe there's something we can get out of this. So I ask myself, like, is there any organization, any team, any person, anyone who knows how to operate well in that sort of scenario? Because it's gonna repeat. Like it's gonna happen again. We're gonna be fighting like really hard to make something happen, and we need to be prepared to operate without the chaos, without the stress, without like everything breaking, everything on fire all the time. And it turns out there is like Navy SEALs is one example. I'm quite sure like that's true for like all the special forces across the world. And there's a guy called Joko who shared their techniques or their tactics on how to run highly effective, highly performing team in a book called Extreme Ownership that I do recommend to read. Like even if you don't run a team, you're not a manager. Like it's a really good read that you can apply to being a tech lead. You can apply to being IC as well. or you can just see if that's something that you would like to explore. And he presents some rules or some principles that you can try to implement in your teams and follow. And they resonate quite naturally with a lot of us, I imagine, because it's not like rocket science, I believe. So they are quite common sense. Extreme ownership, cover and move, prioritize and execute, decentralized command, plan, and keeping things simple. And I'm gonna go over all of them in order and then try to convince you with some other war stories that they actually make sense. So let's start with the first one, which is the extreme ownership. And I believe this is like the core principle that you can find in every single one of them in some other version or flavor. So if you're a manager, if you're a leader, if you're a tech lead, I've got like bad news for you, because it's actually your job and it falls on you. You own the results and you own the failures. And no matter what you say, no matter what you do, at the end of the day, it's on you. So to make sure that you don't feel the pain too often and you don't need to feel badly too often, I do recommend to focus on the root cause and like implement this approach in your team. So you want to know what went wrong so you can fix it. And in order to do this, like there cannot be any blames flying around. Like you need to keep in mind and keep focused on finding the solution. And once you analyze what went wrong, you need to fix the process, because processes work and good intentions, not really. Like everyone has good intentions. The problem is like they don't last forever. The processes, once you like incorporate something, it's gonna be like, automatic. Like you're just gonna follow this and it's gonna work every single time until like you break the process. And as you will see throughout the presentation, like every single habit or principle that I'm gonna talk about, it falls back into the extreme ownership in one way or the other. And I know it's like probably a bit of marketing calling this extreme, but I urge you to like focus on the word ownership, because like that is something that every single one of us can pay attention to, can focus on. And no matter like if you mentor someone, if you hire someone, or if you want to advance your career, it's gonna help you. The principle is like, if you see something needs to be done, you can't let it wait for somebody to like wake up and magically do it. Like if there's no one picking up the slack, it means probably like it's a good opportunity for you to give it a shot and embrace it and own it and feel the responsibility, feel the accountability, and like you will see great things happen. So let's move to the next one, cover and move, which actually is like a fancy way of saying like you need to foster teamwork. And probably every single one of you who either watched like a movie or played some video games intuitively knows like what it relates to. It means that as we move as a team, we need to help our people and we need to watch their backs so they, do the same for us later on. And that is phrased very nicely here with like mutual support. So you need to create an environment for people where they feel safe and they feel like they can share that they don't know things, which is great for like junior engineers and onboarding people or like getting people to work on different projects. And you need to make them feel safe that they can admit that they don't know stuff and they can ask for help. And some other time you can ask for help as well. And they will return the favor. The problem with the remote team very often is that people have a tendency to work in silos because they specialize in one thing. And it's very, very difficult to pull them out of the silos or to create a space in which they will learn new things or new projects. Or it's very tempting to like, keep this guy or working on like this orchestration part of the system because like he wrote it and like it's very complicated and it's distributed systems, and like before somebody else learns, it will take like too much time. The problem is, as we work in silos, like it's a very risky situation because people go on vacation, people get sick, people move on as well, and then you have a problem because like if a person who was owning very like important part of the system is, on Bahamas for whatever reason, either the work stops, or better yet, we have an incident, we don't know how to fix it, or like we end up back to the situation and everyone's running around trying to figure out what went wrong and no one knows how to fix it. People get disconnected immediately in the meetings whenever you talk about things they have no idea about. The planning becomes a nightmare. There is zero accuracy when you try to predict like what the timeline will be. People don't feel like a team because they are disconnected. The PRs are hit or miss because they don't know what they're reading. And overall, like, it's not a team. It's a group of people that are working for the same company by some chance. But when like he starts to break the silos, when you start to create the environment where people can work on whatever they like in terms of the planned work, so you don't pre-assign anything, you don't create those silos, you encourage folks to step outside of their comfort zone, something magical happens because they start to operate as a team actually. They start to talk differently and they start to perceive the teammates as colleagues or even friends sometimes. They feel connected. They feel like can discuss new ideas, new opportunities that they can contribute to design reviews, that they can help during on-call incidents. They feel empowered. They feel like they can do anything that the team does actually. And I've seen like very good examples of folks who started as front-end engineers and they start to ask questions and pick up work from infrastructure and back-end engineering as well. And it was magical to see them grow and like observe how they respond to on-call issues, where in the beginning it was quite terrifying experience, and at the end of it was like, yeah, it's another Tuesday, so not a big problem. And it was quite challenging for us because, as I mentioned, like we were fully distributed, so we didn't have an office. Everyone's working from different country. Some of us were in different time zones, and we had to deliberately set some time aside to either pair together or deliberately like make sure that different people work on certain projects, and that we sort of like take this as a collective effort. So it took time to go into the mode where people actually by default were shifting and mixing and working together, and going a little bit against this natural tendency of like falling to the known and doing what they feel comfortable with. So the next one will be around how do we actually decide what do we need to work on. So if you remember the wartime story, there was a moment where everything was on fire, everything was top priority. We need to fix everything ASAP, and the result was we were fixing one thing and creating two more problems. And the reality is you can always identify what's the most important thing right now. Probably most of you know the famous rule 80-20, where 20% of effort gives you like 80% of the result. That's quite a good rule, and you can use it here. Usually, like it's quite easy to determine which are the actually top 5 or 3 items that you can do as a team that will give you like the biggest benefit, whether it's in the platform stability or the business value or the user experience, since most of you are working on mobile apps. And you can always focus the effort on the thing that actually will give you the biggest bang for your buck. Once you do it, like your job as a leader will be to make absolute sure, or like to be absolutely sure that it's crystal clear to people what the goal is. And I can tell you right now, telling people once is not enough. As in, you need to like make it very clear that, this week or this sprint or this month, whatever timeline you choose, we're focusing on this. And you need to over communicate around this. Make sure that people are exposed to your intent and the goal and the priority as often as it takes, especially if you're an agile team and things shift, because that leads to confusion. So whenever things shift, like you need to double down on communication and you need to make sure that people are almost sick of like seeing the goals and seeing the priorities, and whomever you ask should be able to tell you like, okay, we're working on this right now because business says this, and this will be the result for the company. And the key is like you need to repeat the process. So you need to re-rank, repeat, over communicate again, and that's the flywheel. The key is to make sure that people don't end up in a situation where everything is the priority and everything is on fire and they need to do everything all at once, because that will lead to chaos. And if there's one takeaway, calm triage is always better and outperforms frantic multitasking. People are not designed to multitask, especially like when they are working on difficult problems, difficult engineering problems. As leaders, you need to make sure that people have enough space, enough time to focus on stuff and get their job done so they can move to the next most important thing. You can't expect people to do everything, and you can't expect them to believe that everything is the priority, because then nothing is. And now it's like a time for another story, which was a Snowflake incident. For those of you who don't work with data warehouses, Snowflake is a data warehouse platform that allows you to ingest a lot of data, run some queries, and share that data with other people as well. So the story is about how to create an outage with like very simple and harmless dependency upgrade. So I'm not sure like how many of you were there. I suspect more than would hope for or wish so. So for us, apart from like sharing the data or moving the data around, our platform is responsible for managing infrastructure as well. And we do it using Terraform. Terraform is a tool that allows you to specify in code what your infrastructure should be. And we have really nice setup. We operate across 5 clouds. We tell the system what we need and where we need it. We create all the permissions, all the roles automatically, and it's golden. It's beautiful. The problem is sometimes the Terraform providers get upgrades, and they seem to be quite easy and straightforward. And that was the case. Like, it was just a rename of a resource. The doc says, we're saying that there's nothing to worry about. It's gonna be smooth. It's gonna be, another Tuesday. The problem is, after we did the upgrade, they renamed the resource, which triggered destroying the old role, creating a new role with the same name. But somehow in the process, all the permissions that we've had to Snowflake shares, so Snowflake shares are entities that allow you to share data with different people in different Snowflake accounts. All the permissions were moved to account admin role, and it was impossible to move it back to the role that was created, just because Snowflake doesn't allow it. And they don't forbid you from like dropping the role. They are more than happy to do so. Even they claim that that shouldn't be the case. They move all the permissions to the account admin role and forbid you from moving it back to the role that you created. And as usual, that happened at 3 a.m. for us. So somebody had like really good night and really fun night. Our on-call was able to mitigate the situation manually, log into the affected environments and accounts, did some duct taping around, making sure that at the very least people can access their data and we can ingest the data. But some of the functionality was impaired. So we weren't able to edit the shares, which means like we weren't able to add more tables to them, for example. We were able to add more data to the existing tables, but we weren't able to edit like the semantics or metadata of a share. And by the end of the very interesting night, our uncle was able to prepare a really good handover document that was picked up by the team in the morning. So we had few groups of people who were focusing on different things. Group A was focused on identifying the root cause and figuring out how we want to roll forward. We had a SRE team that was responsible for making sure that our fixes are deployed fast and well to the impacted environments, as well as making sure that they monitor the blast radius and monitor the potential impact of our fixes. And there's another set of people who was responsible for collecting all the metrics and preparing the communication for the customer. So unfortunately, like as opposed to the first story, like this one was impacting actual customers who were paying for stuff, and not just POC where somebody wanted to evaluate things. And as a result, we had few groups of engineers and also salespeople who had very clear idea of what needs to happen. We wanted to end up in a place where our system is operational again, so we can ingest the data, people can access the data, and we can edit all the shares. We want to engage Snowflake support to figure out like whether they can revert the situation. TLDR, they can't. And we want to make sure that our customers are in the loop. So it's very important to make sure that even when things go wrong, you don't lose trust with people. We are quite lucky in that regard because most of this happened during the European time, and most of our customers are in the US. So before they woke up, like we were able to fight our way through this. If anyone is interested, we had to create a new role that had a bit of elevated permissions to operate on the impacted shares before they were migrated over to the new role. But yeah, lucky for us and everyone, like we made it in time before our customers actually felt the impact, and we didn't make their operations any worse because of that. So now, like after the second wartime story, let's move to the Centralized Command, and I think this is my favorite actually, because it focuses on empowering people and empowering engineers to actually like do your job, I guess. So I do believe that the decisions should be made at the code level, and the people who should be able to or should feel empowered to make the decisions are the people who create the code. No matter how well you try to plan the work, no matter how much time you spend on research or designing or drawing beautiful diagrams, you cannot like answer all the questions up front, because you will discover the questions as you work through the code. And it may happen that certain things are not true, impossible, too difficult, or you just need to cut some corners to meet the deadline. And whenever you ask people to make the decisions, you need to make sure that they are aware that there are two types of decisions. There's two-way door decision and one-way door decision. The two-way door decision is the one that we love, because it means you can walk through the door, look around, and if you don't like what you see, you can just turn and like go back, and there's very little harm. You can code your way back from whatever decision you've made. It's a bit different with one-way door decision, because like once you walk through the door, there's no coming back. You cannot just delete the code, or you cannot migrate back. Like you need to find a way forward, or it's going to be very expensive. And the trick is to make sure that people are able to tell apart the two situations, and whenever they encounter the two-way door decision, they feel that they can make it. And if it's the wrong one, they feel that they can go back and they can fix it, and nobody's going to be mad at them. So in order to achieve this, you need to make sure that it's absolutely clear to people what your intent as a leader or as organization or tech lead is. So what do you expect them to do? Like, what's the North Star for the project, for the team, for the quarter, for the company? And you need to define the boundaries. So people should feel like they can come to you and ask, what should I do next, if they don't feel like they should make the decision themselves. And then they will start to operate within that framework. They will enable you to focus on the bigger picture while taking care of all the important things that they work on. And they will engage you whenever something actually requires our attention or requires bigger picture, or some input from the business, some input from people who are closer to the customers as well. And as a result, something very, very interesting will happen, because people will see that you trust them, will see that they make an impact, will feel that they actually own what they work on. They will feel that what they do is actually them. It's not that somebody told them, it's somebody trusted them. And they will naturally grow into people who can lead a project, who can mentor other engineer, who can bring a new hire up to speed, who can work with you or PM or TPM or CEO or CTO on defining the next steps on the roadmap, defining the next feature. They will feel empowered to actually go and talk to the customers and take the keyword ownership of things. And in our case, like I had the great pleasure of seeing at least 2 of my engineers to raise their standards and actually became like very, very good tech leads, which allowed me to take a step back and actually focus on the bigger picture, focus on the strategy for the team, for the company, and make sure that I'm there to provide the context that they need to make the decisions, not to micromanage anyone, but actually be there to give them more data if they need it. And that's a really nice segue to coming up with the plan. And that's probably not a surprise to anyone, because having a good plan is the first step on actually doing stuff. And before we jump into this and getting input from the team, I think it's good to start with making sure that you actually believe in what you want to do. Because I've seen very often that people try to make other people do stuff that they don't actually believe. And if you hear about this new amazing feature or this great plan for the roadmap that doesn't sit right with you and doesn't feel right, it means that you have more work to do, because you need to challenge stuff with the upper management or with your manager or some principal engineers until you feel convinced, until you feel like you actually want to do this and you actually believe this and you have all the information that you need before you want to proceed. And then and only then you can bring this work to your team, because you can expect for sure that not everyone will agree with you. And if people sense that you actually yourself don't agree with what you ask them to do, like they're not gonna engage and they're not gonna feel like that's something they want to do. If you actually end up in a place where you know what you want to do, you know why you want to do this, and you believe that's the right thing, you can start bringing people in, and you need to make sure that you get the buy-in from your engineers or your teammates, because then they will feel like they're part of the solution, not just the people who are asked to, like, I don't know, generate thousands of lines to solve a problem for you and then just close their laptops and forget about this nasty feature that they never wanted to happen anyways. In the process of this discussion and when they feel like they are part of the conversation, they will actually help you to spot and identify potential risks and red flags or bottlenecks early on, or even create with you like a plan B, plan C, plan D, that will make sure that you're prepared for things that can go wrong, which, as you can see, especially in startups, happen quite often. And it's always good to have some idea what can go wrong, and it's even better to have some idea what to do in that case. And the problem with this is plan is great, but it never works perfectly. So you need to adapt and adjust and reassess and make sure that you keep talking to people, you keep looking for misses in your process, looking for misses in your plan, and trying to adapt, trying to fix stuff. And again, I'm not discovering America here. That's probably something that everyone knows. In our case, we had to do daily stand-ups because we were remote and people had a natural talent to diverge a little bit from what we agreed on. Very often circling back to the goals, circling back to the things that we want to achieve as a group within the team. The interesting bit for me was retro that was a bit different from the ones that I've seen in the past. So we were quite aggressive in analyzing every single sprint goal that we were trying to do and trying to dissect like why didn't we do well on it, or like why did we miss X, Y, and Z. And even when we didn't miss, we were very, very pragmatic in trying to analyze if we could have done better, or like if we could shave something, or if it indeed worked as well as we wanted to. And it was very pragmatic, very blameless. So it was us against the problem rather than like looking for people who didn't do enough or didn't do well enough. As a team, we wanted to understand where our processes can improve. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. And even the best plan is not going to give you a lot if you can't communicate around this. Communication itself is probably the single most difficult thing when you run a remote team. So keeping it simple is absolutely crucial. And if you have a team of people who don't speak English natively, they speak French, they speak Greek, they speak Polish, and they learn English at school, you need to make sure that you use simple language that is understood by everyone, and it doesn't leave any room for ambiguity or interpretation. You need to make sure that everything is communicated in small, digestible parts that people can actually understand and apply to their processes, and even translate to their native language if needed. And for that, like it's very good to do something like a simplicity test. Anything that you work on, anything that you commit to as a team or as a company, as an org, should be explainable by anyone, even AI. So in my case, like I actually created a bot that went over all our linear tickets, and it complained to people when things were too complex, and it didn't understand what was going on. So like we had a lot of pings of like, hey, the scope here is not clear, or like this is too long, or this is too short, and I don't know what to do. And yeah, clarity wins over cleverness every single time, making sure that everyone knows what you want them to do and why. In our case, the simplicity test allowed us to shave a lot of unwanted scope during the pivot that yeah, it's a little bit of spoiler that I'm gonna talk about in a second. And I think we shaved about 40% of unnecessary work that otherwise we would just blindly commit to and probably miss a lot of deadlines and did a lot of stuff that later on would break at 3 a.m. So that's the last story I have for you today. It's a success story as opposed to the, to previous ones. We had a replatform. We had a project where we wanted to improve our internal parts of the system to make them more performant and cheaper, and at the same time add a brand new UX and everything while working on new features, because it's a startup. So yeah, it's doable, right? Just to give you some context on what we wanted to achieve, we wanted to introduce Cloudflare R2 as a nice caching layer for the data that we were transferring to our customers to make sure that we can leverage their egress-free offering. And we wanted to add Oracle as our compute layer, which is, yeah, it's probably not very common for people to add Oracle anywhere nowadays. But it was quite a big surprise because they were quite reliable and really cheap. And they integrated well with Cloudflare. So we gave them a shot, and we were quite happy with the results. Just to give you some insight on why this was a challenge. So replatforming a system while adding more stuff by definition doesn't sound nice and easy. We've had a few separate work streams of people who had to guide the work in a way that will allow us to move forward in parallel on all of them. So we had a stream for front end that was doing the overhaul of the UX. We had folks who were introducing new clouds to the system, so OCI Spark jobs and Cloudflare. And on top of that, we've introduced a concept of data products that was allowing you to package the data that you wanted to share with your customers and, do some fancy like querying and saving that and creating secure views and whatnot, and making sure that the right people have access to the right data. In the end, we were operating across 5 different clouds. And we were sending the data from 8 different destinations to 8 different destinations. And the nice metric for me as somebody who was running the team was the hit rate of our goals. We were constantly hitting like 90% or more of the goals that we defined for the team. It was very, very, very predictable on what can we deliver and when can we deliver it. And it was never something that we were very cautious about or very conservative about. The opposite, like we always wanted to push more and we always wanted to be ambitious with things. And I do believe that this is the result of the principles that we talked about. So people felt empowered that they can make decisions. So they didn't get stuck in the bottlenecks of like what my manager would say about how would I do X. We had good plans that we felt like we can change as we work on stuff and things turn out to be wrong. And we are very, very clear in terms of how we communicate. So it was absolutely necessary for people to go on Slack or go on Zoom and make sure that they talk the same they speak the same language in terms of vocabulary domain, and they don't use some fancy words that nobody understands except for this one person from the US who studied like literature for some reason. And yeah, like in the end, we were quite good with the project. So we started in October, I believe. We've had our alpha in early January, beta early March, and right now we are rolling out to production. So fingers crossed. And yeah, like just to give you a sense, like where we landed as a team. If you remember, from the one of the first slides of my presentation, like we started as this distributed team that was working remotely from different countries. That didn't change. That was a little bit disconnected and had some challenges with staying aligned and making sure that we know what's going on. As mentioned before, it was very, very predictable in terms of what we are going to do and what we are going to deliver. And people, they were actually, out of curiosity, picking stuff from different lanes because they wanted to learn this really cool thing that, we just started to work on, and they didn't want to feel like they're missing out. The PRs became much better. People gave good feedback, responded to feedback well. On-call became manageable, as in nobody was scared of going on-call and then getting like issue of infra or backend or frontend for that instance. And the people felt like they're in this together, that they are fighting like against the problem. They are a part of a bigger group that is there to challenge something and change something. And it was very visible in the offsites as well. As in, people were not the very smart engineers who were by accident working in the same place. They were actually teams that enjoyed working together, talking to each other and spending time with each other. And as mentioned before, I saw people growing. I saw people stepping up, becoming the tech leads, and taking like full responsibility and ownership of their work. And they learned how to delegate. They learned how to scale their work. And probably everyone here knows that at some point of your career, that's the way forward. Like you become the force multiplier of the team. Like it's impossible for you to do everything yourself. You need to engage more people, and you need to make sure that they are not blocked, that they are not distracted, and that they feel that they can do what you ask them to do. And if there's any takeaway that I want you to leave here tonight, is on a high-performing team, there is no room for "it's not my job" attitude. So look for ownership whenever you interview people. You look for ownership whenever you want to hire someone, whenever you want to mentor someone. Make sure that people know that this actually will translate to their work and their performance and the team culture that they are going to build together. And you need to build a team around strong ownership and teamwork values. And the rest will follow, trust me. If you focus on the work ethic of a candidate or a colleague or your mentee, miracles will happen. And the rest is quite coachable, in my opinion, as in you can teach people a lot if they have the right attitude. And now we arrived at the Q&A section. If you want to connect, here's my LinkedIn. And if you like the presentation, here's a tool that you can use for your presentations. So I remember last time Chris set the bar quite high because he wrote an app to present. I did my best to use AI, but you let me know if it worked well. So thank you, and looking for the questions if there are any.
Hi. Yes. Thank you for presentation. I think the second QR code doesn't work. I'm not sure it does work for everyone. The question is, did you have bad people in the team who didn't want to collaborate in this great way with everybody, or was not good teammate? What did you do?
So it's a very good question, by the way, because very often it's not a case of somebody who's not good or doesn't want to collaborate. Very often people have a bit different personality that is clashing with other people. And if you actually take a step back and try to see like what is important for certain people, because you can always find something that make people do what they are doing. Some people, they want to explore stuff, and they are the people who do extremely well in doing prototypes, and they will do extremely badly when doing mundane tasks like database migration or something like that. And people who like the dopamine hits of like fixing bugs or something like that. The challenge here is to make sure that you identify this early on, and you as a manager or a tech lead find a common language here. Now, like if it's extreme and somebody's actually like really stubborn and doesn't want to collaborate, you need to like be very, very open and frank with them that you can't operate as a team like that, and it's your job as a leader to own the team, right? To own the performance of the team, to own the environment. And at some point it may happen that you will need to part ways with someone. It's very difficult, and you should make sure that people are aware of it and people know what you want from them. So if we go back to one of the principles, to make sure that it's clear, that it's communicated well. If people don't know what you want them to do, you can't expect them to do it. If you communicate clearly, like this is how we operate and this is how we perform, if someone decides not to, you can't force them, but you're still responsible for building the team. So sometimes you need to performance manage people. Yeah, it's not very happy answer, I guess, but it is what it is. Yeah.
Hey, very nice talk, by the way. It encapsulates a lot of my beliefs that I have towards, the team and the values and everything. I wanted to ask you if, given the entire context right now, which we're in, so, Gen Z, a lot of like work-life balance, a lot of the stuff that doesn't really fit into like Navy SEAL keyword, right?
You would be surprised.
I know. Well, the fact that we're here, and a lot of people, choose to do this than, sit in front of the TV just tells you something. But, you said something along the lines of like you have to recruit for values and culture rather than tech jobs, right? At the end of your talk.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that?
Well, so it all starts with how you define your interview process, in my opinion. As in, I was never a fan of lead code exercises, which I'm very, very glad that nowadays probably are useless with all the AI that is great of like just answering this for you. Uh, I I always like to talk to the candidate about what they believe in, to probe for situations that were either stressful and to see how they responded to this. So obviously, there's always a technical part. I always like to give my candidates a question where there's a design document with some graphs that I did, like at some point in my career, and there are a lot of mistakes. As in, I if I saw this from someone, I would just probably lose my hair. But there are a lot of like gaps made on purpose because I want to see how people give feedback, for example, right? If they see something that is like plainly stupid, if they can be kind in giving the feedback. Because like, first of all, and that's probably a good comeback to your question, you should be kind, you shouldn't be nice. As in, if you're kind to people, you want them to grow, you want them to do well. If you're nice to people, you feel like you don't want to tell them certain things. And that goes for performance, that goes for feedback to design documents or any documents. You want collectively as a group to do great things together. And if you go with the candidate over the exercise where they have the opportunity to disagree with you, they have opportunity to show that they care about things. That's the ownership, right? That's the collaboration, that's the teamwork, because they want to work with you on something. And you can hide those questions in a technical question. So you get so many details very fast. I'm not sure if that sort of answers your question.
So, Krzysztof, I have a feedback for you. That was a very good talk. So, thank you so much. And if you have more questions to Krzysztof, then you can find him at Pizza. But for now, we'll invite Bartek. So, give another round of applause for Krzysztof.